As folks are beginning to gather, I love seeing in our chat, hello, Tom from Sterling Heights, and Mary Beth from Livonia, and all the way from Jamaica as Sandrina. Nice to have you here. Nora from Ann Arbor, go Wheeling Jesuit, hooray for West Virginia. Salam is here, welcome. And Salam is here from Ethiopia, one of our presenters. It's so good to see you. Hello, Nora. I'm from the Midwest Jesuits. Good to see you. See Father Gary has joined us as well, and Andrew Powick from International Samaritan as well. And as folks are joining, I encourage you, as we are all connected to Jesuits in some way or another, if you have an organization or a school that you'd like to add to your name, you're more than welcome to do that as we start welcoming other individuals to join us. And I think Andrew might have one of the longest. Andrew is with International Samaritan, JVC in Peru, St. John's Jesuit High School. So lots of Jesuit connections there, Andrew. And then also you'll notice that Christina, she is the person who is coordinating the behind-the-scene logistics with Meg. If there is anything you particularly need, feel free to reach out directly to Christina Chabot or Meg if you have any technical issues. Hello, Emily. We're glad you're here. So again, if you've just joined us, we encourage you to go ahead and change your Zoom name. And you do that at the right, at the top by clicking your name and put your name and their Jesuit institution with whom you most identify. And we encourage you also to say hello in the chat. It's unique and challenging to not be in person today, but it's a gift that we can be here with our friends from around the country and around the globe. So we'll go ahead and give it 1 to 2 more minutes before we start. We notice that our numbers at the bottom, if you see the participants, are growing, and so folks are still getting in, and so we'll give them just a few minutes more to go ahead. If you are on screen and you are from outside of Michigan, I invite you to do maybe a wave of your hand or a thumbs up or a wave. So those of you who are not here in Michigan, we can appreciate how far you've come to be on our Zoom call today. Okay, Father Gary did just win the prize for the most number of Jesuit organizations. Father Gary, welcome. We're glad you're here. St. Peter and Paul's Church in Detroit, connected obviously to UD Mercy and the Jesuit School of Theology in Berkeley, as well as JVC and Jesuit. So I think so far he is our winner for the most number of connections. Not at all surprised, Father Gary. Excellent. So we want to be respectful of time. And so again, if you've just joined us, we encourage you to go ahead and change your Zoom name by right-clicking. We hope this will be an engaging and interactive conversation today. So we invite you to put your name in your title here, as well as go ahead and use the chat feature. So welcome and good afternoon to our friends, Jesuit Friends and Alumni Detroit Fall Gathering. My name is Angela, and it's a real joy to be here with you today. Just a few pieces of housekeeping when we get started. We're really lucky to have this platform. It's really useful for us, given that we're unable to be here in person together. So I just wanted to go over a few expectations and housekeeping tips. To minimize background noise and distractions, all of our lines are muted during this session. We'll take us off of mute during our breakout session or any of the question and answer or group sharing components. As you see, the webinar is going to be recorded and will be available via email after this session for a few weeks. We encourage and warmly welcome your chats and questions. Go ahead and use those in the chat box. If you're struggling at any point, go ahead and reach out to Christina or Meg, at the Catholic Foundation who will get you on the right track. Again, you'll notice there's a gallery view and a speaker view. Sometimes it's helpful to go back and forth between these different views. We'll be using a small group feature shortly, and we really encourage everyone to use your video as well as speaker during that time. We definitely are looking forward to a productive and engaging conversation today. So now it's my honor to introduce Tom Shapansky, who's the chair of the Jesuit Friends and Alumni Network here in Detroit, to get us started. I'll turn it over to you, Tom.
Great, thank you, Angela, and hi, everybody. Thanks for taking the time to join us today. If you're not familiar, through 3 events a year, the Jesuit Friends and Alumni Network of Detroit serves as a fellowship organization for anyone interested in affiliated with Jesuit organizations or simply want to learn about Jesuits' work. Though we encourage financial support to Jesuit causes, we're not a fundraising organization. We're also an all-volunteer organization, and so in that spirit, I'd like to recognize the steering committee that plans these and our other events, with a special thanks to 3 people. First, for many years, Mary Gressens was chair of JFAN. She turned that job over to me about a year ago, but we never really had a platform to publicly thank her for her well-deserved, her hard work on our organization. So thank you, Mary, for helping found JFAN Detroit and for your many years of leading us. Similarly, Rachel Brennan was on the JFAN steering committee for most of its existence. She recently retired on that role, though I suspect she's on this webcast today. Rachel, we thank you for your service. The third person we should thank is a newer member of our committee. That's Angela Maloney, who you just met. Angela deserves our special thanks for today's program. Angela is the president and CEO of the Catholic Foundation of Michigan. They arranged for our keynote speaker and are managing all the logistics of this webcast. So thank you, Angela, and all the Catholic Foundation of Michigan folks. Our invocation today will be offered by Father Don Vitisse. Father Vitisse, a Jesuit, is the founder of International Samaritan. I learned that in the early 1990s, Father Vitisse traveled to Guatemala City, and there, in the presence of a bleeding child, surrounded by trash and stench, Father Vitisse had what he calls a conversion. But one thing led to another. In over 25 years, he helped a generation of good people to no longer exist on garbage. So let us pray with Father Don Vitisse.
Let's bow our heads. We come before you, Father, mindful of these words from your Son, Jesus. Truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. Today we ask that you write these words deeply on our hearts. Help us to know the joy of sacrificing for the least of your children suffering from chronic and severe poverty found in the garbage dumps of the poorest countries of the world. Help us to feel the indignities they suffer, the poverty, the hunger, the homelessness, the danger of living amongst rats and vultures. Father, we ask that you open our eyes now and let us see their poverty. Open our hearts and inspire us with compassion, a compassion that moves us to mercy and generosity and serves the poor and pleases you. Father, make the least of your children become our children. Teach us to put our arms around them. We lift this prayer up to you, knowing that you hear and answer prayer in your time, in your way, and through your Son, Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Father Vitisse. Thank you, Tom, and thank you all for your patience. Recognizing today is a gift to be in this space, and it's a unique one. What a gift it is to gather here as a group from all across the globe. So it's my honor now to introduce our speakers today. So we've got 2 speakers. We have Mike and Salam. The first, Mike, is the president of International Samaritan. Mike Tenbush is a graduate of UD Jesuit High School, Loyola University Chicago, and the University of Michigan Law School. In asking Mike a bit about his favorite job, he says he really, really loves working with International Samaritan, and yet it comes very close to his favorite job of all time, which was selling ice cream at Joe Louis Arena when they won the Stanley Cup. I think he's got a little bit more meaning in his work now. Next is Salam. Salam is the country coordinator of Ethiopia for International Samaritan and is impassioned by her development in Africa throughout her effective partnerships. She has degrees in law, management, sociology, and peace, security, and development. She has an extensive experience in international development and international aid. She is an outstanding woman, an outstanding speaker, but she's not a very good cook. She let us know she has not cooked in over 6 years to save the people around her from her cooking. We are honored to have them with us today and honored to present them to you as our Jesuit Friends and Alumni Network Detroit speakers. So I turn it over to you now, Salam and Mike.
Thanks so much, Angela. This is Mike, and just really grateful to you and the Catholic Foundation of Michigan for our partnership, as well as to JFAN and just the deep affection and gratitude I have to the Jesuits. I've got so much that I want to say about the Jesuits, but I also have 3 of the coolest people in the world who will be speaking and presenting with me. So I'll try and move quickly because they're really the show here, and I want to move to them. And we will talk in a few minutes about what life is like for people in developing nations in the pandemic. I thought it'd be helpful though to start out a little bit with who International Samaritan is and how we're here. And I just did want to share my Jesuit connection. Started at birth for me. I'm named Michael Francis after Father Frank Canfield, my dad's best friend, who taught with him and coached track and cross country with him at U of D High for a long, long time in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And my childhood was spent really kind of at their feet when they were on the front porch in the summer or at the kitchen table in the winter, and they would just talk for hours about the needs of their students. And those conversations would quickly go to the needs that we have here in the city of Detroit, which would go to the needs that we have in our country or in our world, which would often lead to what Christ calls us to do. And it was just this very beautiful conversation that these 2 men would have, trying to express their love and desire to help their students, that went quickly to global issues and quickly to their calling in Christ. And I share that because in many ways, I think that's how International Samaritan started. Father Don Batiste, the president of St. John's Jesuit at the time, as Tom mentioned, was on a car trip in Guatemala City with 5 students from St. John's Jesuit in 1994. They were on a service immersion trip. And when they came across this garbage dump, Father Batiste and the students were so appalled by what they saw that they started to ask each other, what is this? What's happening? What can we do as students? And what does Christ call us to do? And that speaks to me because our name is based on what Jesus said in Luke 10:24, when a certain young lawyer came to him with kind of the same question about what must I do to inherit eternal life. And Jesus said, in addition to loving God with your whole heart, you have to love your neighbor as yourself. And this lawyer looked at him and said, who is my neighbor? And I think that the way Father Batiste and those 5 students from St. John's responded to that answer in 1994 is truly what we've been doing ever since. Father Batiste has just built this amazing organization at International Samaritan, dedicated to walking hand in hand with people living and working in garbage dump communities to help them break out of poverty. And he's done that with and through thousands, literally thousands of students at about a dozen Jesuit schools, among other partner high schools and universities across the nation, that have traveled with us to ask how we can help, and have responded in kind with very generous support from our donors. We've built schools and homes. We now have 870 students on scholarships, and we're helping to feed families through this pandemic, which we'll talk about in a little bit more detail in a minute. Father Batiste retired in 2018, and I came aboard in November. One of my first phone calls was to Salam, the leader of our work in Ethiopia, and I was so amazed by who she is and her heart and just the amazing expertise and talent that she brings to this work, that I scheduled a flight there. And a few weeks later, I was on my first trip to Ethiopia, just to meet Salam. And what I'd like to do now is just to turn it over to her to tell you, so she can tell you a little bit about of our work and the way she leads it in Ethiopia.
Thank you, Mike. Truly an honor to be able to speak to you and to tell you like few things about what I knew and what I still know about the Jesuit. But before I say that, I want to say a few words about the person who introduced me to the first Jesuit priest in Ethiopia, Mike Tembush. So Mike lives over like 8,000 miles away from me. And the Jesuit priest, Father Odomaro, whom I came to know before 2 years, lives 5 miles away from me. But I was introduced by Mike, who came 8,000 miles away from where I was. When Mike came to Ethiopia to meet me and to get to see what we do in Ethiopia, my daughter, can you hear me okay? Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Awesome, awesome. My daughter was only a year and few months old, and she was a light sleeper. So like all the night, I was just waking up about like 6, 7 times. I was tired, and Mike came 8,000 miles away from his hometown to spend a week with me and to see our work. So I remember waking up in the morning and taking 2 cups of Ethiopian coffee, not an ordinary coffee, but like really strong Ethiopian coffee, because the president is coming. You know, like he's like the boss of my supervisor. He's not even my immediate supervisor. So I said, oh, you know, like I have to make a good impression. And then like I had my coffee, and I asked him if he can meet me at my favorite coffee shop, so that like I can have my 3rd cup of coffee. So after having like all my coffees, we get to meet Father Odomaro, who is a member of the Jesuit group in Ethiopia. And I didn't have any expectation of the person he is. From the phone call that I had with him, he was very calm and welcoming. So as we walked into the Jesuit home in Ethiopia, he opened the door and he welcomed us into the Jesuit home. Then we started having our conversation over coffee. Keep on counting. This is like the 4th cup of coffee. So he was asking me about like what we do in Ethiopia. And I told him about how we started small. We started with 10 students, giving scholarship to students who are struggling to continue their education and who live in dump sites. And then I started telling him about the number of students who are going to graduate the coming year and the department that they are enrolled. And then as we kept on having our conversation, I told him about our book club. At International Samaritan in Ethiopia, we have a book club whereby we invite students. It's not actually an invite. We actually expect each scholar to read 1 book per month. So they get to read 1 book per month, and we have them in small groups, and they tell us about the information that they have gathered from the book that they have been reading for the month's schedule. And this is the time that we get to know them, and we also share experience. Usually, whenever we ask them like to come in a group, we get to meet them in a local school or in a local community center, which is very close to where they live, which again is also very close to the dump site. So one of the ideas that we had was, you know, these kids, garbage collection of where we work, it's a generational work. This is something that they have seen their grandparents doing. Their parents do the same job. And these kids, they are destined to be garbage collectors. So we wanted to challenge their thoughts. We wanted to show them the idea that there is a lot they could do. There are so many places that they could be. not even the garbage, they can go to places that they have never seen before, places that they have not heard before. So we wanted to make sure that they get an idea of the world so that they can experience the beauty of the world. But when we meet them, it's usually at the same spot and right next to the garbage. So for me, I was just thinking, I wish we could go to places, to nice places for book review, so that they hear something new and they also get to be in a new place and experience a new environment. So as I was just telling Father, after again 4 cups of coffee, he walked me to a room. He said, like, come here. In the middle of my conversation, he said, I want you to check out a room. And then like he opened one of the rooms at the Jesuit home and he told me, this is your office. And you know, like the kids, how you want them to experience like new places, they can come here. Like you are welcome anytime. You can make use of it. So the room was filled of like books, nice chairs, like it's next to a very beautiful tree. It's beautiful. It's the place to be. I didn't even know how to say thank you. Like all the word which came out of my mouth was blah, blah, which was like my way of saying thank you. So Father Odomarov, starting from that day, has been an excellent advisor to our program. I just want to share what he did for us before a couple of weeks. We celebrated Ethiopian New Year on the 11th of September. As we're planning for a New Year celebration, we said, what's the one unique thing we could do for the year 2013? And we said, what if we ask people who could support to donate books so that we can have an open public library? And as I started like to mention this to Father, he said, hey, why don't you make use of my car? I can ask my driver to drive you around so that you can collect books and put it at the library. And he said, not only that I can give you books with my driver, but I want to be there in person so that I can say thank you to people who are going to donate us the books. So Father has been a very selfless person, an excellent advisor with amazing sense of humor, which sometimes like he makes me forget about how my day is going. Like he has this way of making you feel welcome and very happy with who you are. He challenged our scholars and my team with different thoughts. He asks you like very deep questions and you cannot run away from it. He makes sure that you answer it to a point that it leaves you challenged, and also it asks you to lead into an action so that like you can also act on it. So Father for me has been the definition of the Jesuit. Sharing the gifts, living for others. He didn't tell me the values of the Jesuit, but he showed me by action. So this is how I came to know about the Jesuit. And I've had a pleasure of working with Father for the past 2 years.
Thank you, Salam. There's a couple of things that Salam touched on I want to just not gloss over. One will go quickly. It's 2013 in Ethiopia because they didn't adopt the Gregorian calendar. So for those of you who don't like 2020, you can move to Ethiopia and have a much better year. It's always hard to deliver a joke on Zoom because I don't know if that flew or not, but in any event. I also wanted to just take a moment to say, we use the word garbage dump communities, and I thought maybe it'd be helpful to unpack that. When I went to Addis Ababa for the first time, there were 5 million people living there. That was 2 years ago. There's now 7 million people in Addis Ababa. And so what happens there is not unique in developing nations, in that 1 out of 10 people in the world, according to the World Health Organization, live on $2 a day. So 1 out of 10 people live on $2 a day. Very, very difficult to survive on $2 a day. So you have this mass move to the cities to get work. And sometimes, and lots of times for lots of folks, there's just not enough work in the formal economy. And so in just about every large city and just about every developing nation, there is an area where the city's garbage has been being stored and collected, not in a landfill in the way we would think about it, which is built in an environmentally sound way with rules and regulations about what can be disposed there and who can go in. But oftentimes it just began as an answer way out in an area at some point that grew and grew and grew. And now there's literally in these communities, oftentimes 1,500 to 5,000 people who live and work in that area, making more than $2 a day by stacking. Women often stack the cardboards and the plastics, and the men look for the metals. And it's just a very difficult, very dangerous, especially for women. It is a very dangerous place for women to be. But it's kind of like the survival opportunity for many people and their families. And this is the place in which we have focused our mission. And so having said that, when the pandemic started sweeping across the nation, January and February, Andrew Powak, our well-trusted leader of our work for 13 years across the various nations, was keeping us on high alert about what this meant. I was with Salam in Ethiopia in the beginning of March. I think I may have caught coronavirus on my flight home from an airport in Germany. But regardless, we got home in March and weren't sure what was going to happen until the NBA canceled a game on the night of March 11th. And then for me, the whole world changed, and I think for us all. Here in Detroit, we were impacted horribly by the virus. My cousin is a captain of the 11th precinct, and it swept through the 9th and 11th precinct in a horrible way. Hundreds of Detroiters lost their lives early on, including a good friend of mine named Marlo Stoudemeyer at the age of 43 on March 26, a wonderful Detroit activist, father and husband. And in these 2 or 3 weeks period, we're on the phones with Salam and Renate and Angelica and Sandrina and the leaders of our work across 5 nations, trying to figure out what to do, because we knew how dangerous this virus would be if it hit their communities with really very little sanitation, very little running water, very little in the way of health resources, healthcare resources. And we were scared both that our team might catch the virus in going to the villages, and also that our communities, and also that our team might bring the virus to the communities. It was just a very frightful time, an uncertain time for each of us on this call and around our work in 5 countries. But our team leaders did a really neat job of strategically, thoughtfully connecting with their communities over the course of about 2 weeks, trying to figure out what we could do to help. And each of them were coming back with, we really have to figure out a way to get food and water and some sanitation supplies, because they've closed the dumps. The informal economy is just being shut down because every nation was imposing martial law-like conditions for all the necessary reasons. And there is no welfare system. There are no supports like we have here in the US. And so by March 28th, our board of trustees, just an amazing group of people, got together and agreed that we would make sure that no family of any of our scholarship students or any of our partner families where we've been in partnership through building homes or working with the schools would go hungry. And we have committed over and raised over $900,000 to meet that need this year. And now we have to do the same. It's going to be closer to just over $1 million to do the same thing for next year. It's been a huge challenge, but we have seen people across the world literally give really generously to help meet that need. And I'll just say really quickly, one of the challenges that came up most recently, really still in July, I was like, I think we might still get out of this. Kids are going to go back to school in August, September, and we might see it's not spreading the way we thought, giving a break in the weather and things like this. Well, by the end of July, we realized we were wrong. They were closing schools and keeping schools closed through the end of the year. And we had kids who were trying to learn on broken cell phones that often didn't even belong to them. And so we made another commitment that we'd make sure none of our kids dropped out of school because they didn't have the technology. Again, our team leaders did this amazing kind of like, let's figure out what we need. They figured out we needed about 465 tablets for our students. And then we said, how are we going to raise the money for that at about $300 a piece, $140,000? We said, let's run a race. And so we invited people across the world to run a 5K. and Salam and her team ran one, and Sandrina and her team ran one, and we had our scholarship students in other nations, as well as Jesuit schools across this country, running to raise money for tablets. Regis Jesuit in Denver put in 13 teams and raised almost $20,000 to commit tablets to our kids. So we've just really been blessed by the Jesuit network of friends and schools across the country. Salam, she was one of our fastest runners ever. That's also not true. But tell us a little bit about what the race was like in Ethiopia, Salam.
Yes. So I was supposed to run 5K. I ran about 3K, and it took me 56 minutes. So yeah, not bad. When the pandemic started, it has affected the whole world. But for us in developing nation, I can speak for Ethiopia, it was very different. It touched almost all our values. It affected families. It affected just the basic necessities of people. So we're talking about what are people going to eat, what are they going to drink, and how are they going to pay for house rent. So it was one of the most challenging times that we had working with communities in dump sites. One of the challenges, as Mike described, was the issue of technology. Students were away from home. One, the parents, they didn't know how to be with their kids for that long period of time. You know, we're talking about a community which wakes up each day at 4 a.m. in the morning to go to the garbage, collect any saleable item, bring it back, sell, and spend their time with their kids. But now, they cannot go to the garbage. Their kids are not going to school. They are home, so they have to take care of their kids. Their livelihood is gone because they used to do small trade, or they used to do like, most of them, they do like hand washing, cooking people's food. They do like small services, but now they are not welcome to be in other people's house so that they can continue their living. And in addition to that, the students are home, but they are expected to continue their class in virtual classes. They don't have the technology for it. So we were really challenged as a team how to help them continue with their education. Some kids, they have like smartphones. So they read their notes in their small smartphone, but most of them, they don't have any. Especially college students. They were given college assignments, which actually demanded technology, which demanded internet connection, which demanded them to have tablets, laptops, but they did not have the means for it. They cannot go to cyber cafes to access because most shops have been closed. So it's like they are expected to be in school, but the technology is stopping them from continuing their education. So this was the time that we organized 5K global 5K run. We knew as Ethiopians that we were going to get the fastest time. We did not even doubt it. But we had one challenge from Jamaica. So Sandrina, who's also in this call, she challenged me. She said, I'm coming from the Usain Bolt country. I'm like, okay. And we are going to win. I said, but 5K and 10K is for East Africa, specifically for Ethiopia and Kenya. So there is no way that you guys are going to win. So we challenged each other and we said, whosoever wins is going to send each other coffee. So now I expect my coffee, Sandrina. I know you are in this call. I expect my Jamaica coffee. We worked with a team of elite professionals to make sure that we get the time for it. And the highest time has been Ethiopia. So 14 minutes to be exact, 14 minutes. Some of us, yes, for 3K took us 56 minutes, but the others, they did the 5K for, yeah. So what that race means for us is to give the students the opportunity to continue their education. Without tablets and laptop, there was no way that they would continue their virtual classes. So which means they at least lag a year behind their classmates just because they don't have the technology for it. We had a group of about 55 people in Ethiopia who joined the virtual race, and many people, they turned up for the virtual race. And I want to say thank you so much for everyone in this group who has taken part to give the opportunity for our scholars to be back in school and to equip them with technology. Before 3 days, we gave out our first technology support to our college students. And I want to share one story of a student who was given a laptop before 2 days. His name is Zalalem. Zalalem is a psychology student, and he's expected to graduate this year. When I say this year, Ethiopian calendar 2013. So it's any time between today and July. So until July 2021, we expect Zalalem to graduate whenever class resumes. So he told me that he has been given so many assignments, but he asks his friends over the phone. He asks them like, what's the assignment? So like he tells them over the phone what to type. So can you imagine, like for a psychology graduating class, to be on the phone with his friends and to ask them for support if they can type his response? It was like, for me, it was really unbearable. He's one of the smart students that we have in our program. And a few days, he comes to our center to make use of the one computer that we have. But there are so many students who want to make use of it at the same time. So he never gets to be on the PC and work on it for many hours. So this race and the technology means it's going to give a solution to students like Zalalem so that they can be able to continue their education, so that they can graduate from college. Zalalem is the first in his family to ever go to a higher institute. So he's like a role model to his siblings and also to his neighbors as well. So the opportunity, the 5K run has given us the opportunity to reach many students. And now we have a few laptops on our hand that we can keep supporting our scholars with their technology needs during this pandemic.
Thank you, Salam. That's awesome. Thank you so much. Can everybody hear? Yeah, I think I'm off mute. I just wanted to share, in addition to the Ethiopia team, we've had teams from Cristo Rey High School and Loyola High School here in Detroit. And I just received an email from Ms. Curran over at U of D High School. They've raised $2,700 so far to support the work. So I just want to give a sense of the impact that the Jesuit schools are making across the nation for our scholars. We're going to go to Breakout Room now. Just a quick heads up that we also have teams in Honduras and Nicaragua who won't be able to be on this call or aren't able to because of the impact of Hurricane Ida in their communities and the work they've been doing to help get cleaned up. Hopefully our people are safe, but there's just a lot of damage to be fixed there. Turn it over to you, Angela.
Yeah, thank you, Mike and Salam, for getting this conversation started for us. Such critical work, right, on any day, but so much more so in these times, and such creative work. What a gift, right, to be creative and able to respond in such amazing ways. I find that in times it's easy for us in the United States to get somewhat self-focused, right? And it's such a joy to have a global perspective here today. So that's such a unique opportunity for us to be in this virtual space, is that it's allowing for us to have breakout sessions with the teams in Ethiopia, Guatemala, Jamaica. And so in just one moment, you're going to be moved into a breakout room to have further discussion. And the way this works is you're going to be in these rooms for roughly 15 minutes. We're going to ask that all of you turn on your video so we can be there together. And then you're going to get a 1-minute warning when it's time to come back to the large group. And at that time, we'll have the opportunity for further question and answers and a dialogue in a large group. So now we'll go ahead and you'll get brought into the small group session. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Salam.
Thank you.
Good to see people coming back.
As people are
Welcome
coming
back.
Can I take a moment just to share, as people come back into the room, that we have officially named the fastest church in the world is now the St. Mary Student Center in Ann Arbor. Good Jesuit church in Ann Arbor, church in the world. Fastest Jesuit school in the world is Regis Jesuit in Denver. And also pleased to report the fastest board member in the world is Dan Weingartz from the Weingartz family. So,
Go Dan.
lots of love here.
That's some good reporting back. Well, thank you, everyone. Welcome back. I hope you were as inspired and challenged and encouraged as I was. I invite you to type a feeling or a response or a reaction into the chat from what you experienced. The only thing I didn't like about the breakout sessions is that I couldn't be in all three at the same time. So please use the chat to help us see. At this time, what I would like to do is we're going to go ahead and do question and answers. And so Christina and Meg, if you have the ability to put us back onto the big screen, the grid view, so we can see one another. I think we're a small enough group that we might just be able to do a raising of your hand, your actual hand, or your reaction hand, if you have a question, and we'll go ahead and call on you. Or you can type it into the chat as well. All right, Bill, go ahead and take yourself off mute and ask your question, please.
First, Mike, great to see you. Obviously, Mike and I overlapped at U of D. Spent a lot of quality time there. Your reminiscence of Father Canfield and your dad, 2 thumbs up. 2 of the best people that I knew on this planet. Great people. And just as a heads up to the rest of Mike's team, Mike has a pretty good background in running and track and field and cross country, so I would not take any challenges from him or coffee or anything along those lines for the team. So he's totally sandbagging all of you on that. So just hats off, Mike. Great work to you and your team. I talked in the breakout session. Just remarkable, the work that you're doing under the best of circumstances is remarkable, and for your frontline teams dealing with the challenges of the pandemic is just phenomenal. So just hats off to that. And just a query on, as you sort of look at your landscape for the next 6 months or so, what are your biggest challenges as an organization in terms of resource and people, and what can we do to help?
Oh, Bill, that's so kind of you. A lot of love to you, Bill, and the Bulldogs of Loyola. Thank you for that, man. I tried to keep my smack talking to a minimum, probably not successfully. Really the biggest challenge for us is straight resources. I should say this, Father Batiste did this amazing job putting money, a little bit of savings away, 20 to 30% each year, that he built an endowment that now covers all of our US expenses. A couple of years ago, we moved $1 million into the Catholic Foundation to start covering the legacy costs for scholarships. But when we start 2020, we will have raised $1 million of the $3.5 million we need to get through the year. So we're really just trying to do everything we can to make sure all of our scholarship needs are met, all of our families are fed, and we're just asking everybody we can for help. That is our challenge.
Thanks. And our next question is from Stacy. If you want to give us take yourself off mute. Thanks, Bill.
Hi, Mike. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. I am so interested in your project, and I hear that you need resources and people who can donate and things like that. But for someone like me who's a graduate student, are there actions that we can take or things we can do to be more involved on a different level than just a financial level?
Great. I'm so glad you asked that. The fact that we had to stop doing trips allowed us to really reimagine what a partnership could look like year-round instead of just 1 week out of the year. And so we had our team leaders and the leaders, campus ministry leaders in our schools work on a design process for a while. And they came up with this really beautiful model we call Learn, Serve, Grow. And under Learn, you can do things like join a book club or a Spanish and English meetup or things like that. Under Serve, you could work on projects serving the elderly in your community and talk about what it's like with our scholars in different communities. And then under Grow, you can do things like join the race or fast in order to help raise money for our other nations. So we're trying to update our website with all of those opportunities, but we really want to make sure that we're making year-long powerful connections between people in the US and schools and churches, could be Bible studies or fraternities, as well as our teams in other countries in meaningful ways, which we think we now have the opportunity to do through Zoom, which we didn't have or we weren't taking advantage of 10 months ago. So lots of opportunities we're trying to really grow in the months ahead.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That sounds great.
Thank you.
What other questions do we have today before our time? Nora. You're still on mute, Nora.
Okay. I was wondering if you had any relationship with Jesuit Relief Services.
Andrew might speak better to that. He's on this call. We've had overlapping, but with some in some experiences, but not a really strong partnership that I'm aware of. But I'm still a little bit new. Andrew may have better knowledge over his 13 years with the organization.
Yeah, that's a really great question. International Samaritan, we're focused on primarily with garbage dump communities in large cities. Oftentimes, JRS is focused more solely on refugees, mostly refugees who can be internally displaced within a country or refugees who cross borders. We have not done anything directly with Jesuit Refugee Service because they're focused more on people who are very transient. The group of people that we focus on is a population that is settled in one community in one place, and they have not moved around. So I have met people with the director of the Jesuit Refugee Service in Ethiopia, and they do have they actually help operate refugee camps in Ethiopia in relationship to the civil war in Sudan. And they do great work also. They do phenomenal work with refugees all around the world.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Christina, your question next.
Hi, everyone. So I have a question. I don't know too much about International Samaritan as far as all the countries that you're in, but I was actually a refugee. I was born in a refugee camp in Turkey during the Gulf War. And so I guess my question, just because of my background, is there any sense or desire or even willingness or possibility of expanding to Middle Eastern countries that, as you know, have a lot of refugee displacements and folks that are looking for help?
Thanks so much, Christina. Great segue. Just fascinating story, obviously, behind your being here and on this call. So thank you for that. Yeah, we've had to limit our growth, obviously, because of the pandemic and everything we're doing right now. And so when we are ready to grow again, 2022 and beyond, it will likely be, as Andrew mentioned, more focused just on those areas in which the garbage dump communities are most prevalent. Our vision is a world 100 years from now in which the garbage dumps of the world are no longer homes to human beings struggling to survive. And so we will stay in that. And there's about 50 that are just larger and more massive and worse than anywhere else. And we're really trying to focus on those 50 over the next 100 years. And for those in the Middle East, that's certainly possible. The geography doesn't matter to us. The area of the earth doesn't matter as much as the area within each city that has these places.
I will invite us to continue our conversation, much like we do in our in-person meetings. There's conversation that typically happens after the event officially closes. I would like to let all of us know who are attentive to our time that as we finish up here, you're more than welcome to stay on the conversation or head off. I do want to say thank you to Mike and Salam and the entire International Samaritan team. What a gift it is to have you doing this work now, doing this work here, doing this work around the globe. It's such a gift. Thank you to all of the Jesuits, the alumni, and the Jesuit friends for your leadership and your presence today. And on behalf of the entire Catholic Foundation, where it's our mission to inspire generosity and support ministries, it's really been our honor to be at your service today. We encourage you to look for other Jesuit and JFAN events. For example, there's one on Saturday, November 14th that might interest you. The World Union of Jesuit Alumni is featuring Father John Dardis, the counselor in discernment at the Jesuit headquarters in Rome. That's going to begin at 10 o'clock Eastern on Saturday the 14th. If you want to learn more about that, just simply go to wuja.org to register. That's WUJA, and I'm sure Father Gary is going to put something in the chat about that as well. Thank you all. You are more than welcome to stick around and continue our conversation. If there are other questions, I invite you to raise your hand and we'll continue going. For those of you that need to go on with your day, we understand, and thank you for joining us. Have a beautiful afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you.